Hi, I'm Michael Taylor, host of Theater Corner. Today we bring you Theater Corner Backstage, which takes a look behind the curtain at iconic onstage productions we've all come to love. Join us as we explore one of San Diego's most famous theatrical performances, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Hear from the cast members and artistic director, Barry Edelstein, on their experiences with the production and how the Old Globe is adjusting to a rapidly changing theater world during the COVID-19 pandemic. Explore the history of the production, its roots in San Diego, the diversity of the cast, and how the Grinch has proven to be a timeless tale that will persevere in spite of mounting challenges. So, silence your cell phones, folks, and enjoy Theater Corner Backstage, the Old Globe's Grinch.
The Old Globe Theater, a fundamental place of community in the heart of San Diego. Their plaza, usually filled with a bustling crowd eager to enter an evening performance, now lays barren. The theater doors locked. Plush velvet seats collect cobwebs. Yet, in the middle of December, a whimsical Christmas tree remains flickering with light in a seemingly dim Balboa Park. To San Diegans, this tree marks the annual tradition of the Old Globe's most iconic theatrical production in its history, Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas.
You're a mean one, Mr. Grinch.
I'm Barry Edelstein, Erna Fincy Viterbi Artistic Director of the Old Globe. 2020 would have been the 23rd year of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas at the Old Globe. My predecessor as Artistic Director of the Old Globe was Jack O'Brien, one of the great directors in the American theater. He decided one year that it might be a good idea to try and create an annual holiday show. Many theaters do a Christmas Carol or some other Christmas classic. And it was Jack's notion to do Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas. Everybody knows the story of this thing. It's this guy who lives in the mountains above this little town, and he hates Christmas. And he's got this shrunken, shriveled heart, and he wants to stop everybody else from enjoying things because his life is so narrow and so circumscribed. And over the course of the action of the show, he learns that togetherness is better than loneliness, that community is better than isolation, and his heart grows 3 sizes.
This musical production premiered all the way back in 1997 and returns every single holiday season, garnering thousands of San Diegans who have made this viewing experience an annual tradition. But there's more to this production than just a lovable story. There's a personal connection between the Old Globe, the famous author, and the people who make it happen.
Dr. Seuss is a San Diegan. Dr. Seuss lived in La Jolla for a large chunk of his life. And his wife, Audrey Geisel, Dr. Seuss's name was Theodore Geisel. His wife, Audrey Geisel, was on the board of the Old Globe. And she was a great arts philanthropist, and we're incredibly grateful to her. She was a huge part of the life of the Old Globe. So there was this family connection between the Old Globe and Dr. Seuss.
I was a kid, and Audrey Geisel came to be in one of our productions. They put her in this beautiful, kind of Who-inspired outfit, and she did a cross on the stage. I remember the kids, we were all so excited, and we all got a picture with her backstage. But to be like, oh, it's Dr. Seuss's wife, like it was really special and something that I'll always cherish.
Over the course of 23 years, we've had people become important supporters of the Old Globe who were introduced to theater for the first time as children by seeing The Grinch with their family. We've had people who were kids in the production of The Grinch 15, 20 years ago who've grown up to be adult actors. There's one this year, Charlotte Mary Wen, who was in the show as a kid, and now she's in the show as an adult.
My name is Charlotte Mary Wen, and from the years 1999 through 2006, I played various ensemble members and members of the Who family, and in 2020, this year, I'm playing Mama Who. I remember as an 8-year-old coming to the Grinch on opening night There's just so much excitement. The community of people around you at the Globe is so supportive and kind, and I think the adults made the environment really fun for the kids. This is weird to say, but I think the word really is magical. Like, as a kid, it feels magical. You feel like you're part of something that's truly like beyond this world. You're like, whoa, I'm here and I'm part of this and I made it here.
Though many of us know the story all too well, the amount of work that goes into this production every single year is no easy feat. With a rotating cast of children for each performance, coupled with the artistic and physical demands that the role of the Grinch requires, the cast members and creative teams have their work cut out for them every season.
A huge part of the Grinch is this place called Whoville, where these people live who love Christmas, and there's a lot of children there. And so the production of Dr. Seuss's How the Grinch Stole Christmas has a huge company of minor children, kids. These kids are so talented and so generous. And you watch the poor guy playing the Grinch who's wearing this huge fat suit and a green fur outfit. And he's done this thing 3 times in a day. And it's like, the oxygen tanks get sent down to his dressing room to try and, help him recover from this thing. And yet these kids come running out, just as bright and fresh as can be.
I gotta watch 'em all, who. You gotta watch 'em all, me too. Monkey's a thing.
My name is Leah Manuel. I played Cindy Lou Who in 2018, 19, and 20. The Globe stage is a lot bigger than a school stage. The first time I saw it, it was like twice the size of my school stage. And I was like, whoa, this is humongous. But there's a lot of room because there's a lot of moving around. And it just like, you just get used to it and you're like, oh, my school stage is super small now.
It was amazing. I loved performing and being in Whoville. It's so festive, and Christmas time is just a special time of year. We're all close and we're all together, and it's amazing. I had so much fun.
You can even see the history backstage. They have like all these like images of old costumes, and when I got fitted for the show, you could see old costumes that were used for other shows. They have this board where they measure your height every year and they mark it with a Sharpie and you sign your name. And I got to see Vanessa Hudgens like Sharpie writing, and I was like starstruck because she was the first Cindy Lou. It was surreal to know that I was performing in the same theater that she was.
My name is William B.J. Robinson. 2019, I played Palm Springs Who, and in 2020, I am still a citizen of Whoville. Every moment and every day of my experience with the Grinch and being at the Old Globe, it was so happy. It was so blissful. At first, it felt very much like a dream, just day after day, taking the bus over to Balboa Park and walking through the park and knowing that like I'm walking up towards the theater. Oh no, now I'm actually going across the street from the theater, the secret rehearsal place that isn't necessarily a secret, but no one knows it's there unless they know. And there were so many moments where it just kept feeling like, is this really happening? Is this really me? I remember when we got close to Christmas, I started having this new fear that I was never going to be as happy as I was doing the Grinch, and thought it's all downhill from here. And on the last day of it, I thought, you know what? Even if it is downhill from here, that's okay, because these were the best 3 months ever.
What you see on stage is just as important as what goes on backstage. The Old Globe's Grinch is made possible by a myriad of talented artists.
Although Jack O'Brien created the show, he does not come back out every year to restage it. So for years now, we've had a director whose responsibility is to remake the show every year, put it in again, make sure that it's at the level of excellence that it was at when it was created 23 years ago. And that director is the very, very talented James Vasquez, who not only lives in San Diego, but is a native San Diegan. He directs a lot of stuff at the Globe, and he directs all over the country. And every year, it's his responsibility to be the shepherd and the custodian of this very important production.
Working with James was so much fun. He's such a wonderful director, and I love how he talks to actors. For me, it was really fun to work with him as an actor and him as the director, when the dynamic I was used to was us working together as actors. And of course, in both settings, I look up to him so much.
Working with James Vasquez has felt like working with a best friend. James and I had plenty of talks during rehearsals because he would make the time to speak to every member and allow every person to really check in with every rehearsal, with every performance, and beyond.
James has this ability to work with kids that, as a parent of young children, I can tell you, is pretty uncanny. He just makes them feel at ease and makes them feel safe, and he treats them like professionals, doesn't condescend to them in any way, treats them like grown-ups, and he brings the best out of them.
He thinks like a kid. So he really helps you get into the character and imagine what it's like to live in this Whoville world. And he is so whimsical, so creative, and he made the experience of performing at the Old Globe 1,000 times better.
He is so in tune of the challenges we all face as artists, as human beings in our own individual lives, and especially with artists of color, as to how many more challenges are in our paths that go unseen and often go unacknowledged by powers that be in the arts. There's not a moment of discomfort with James.
Every year, one of the very big questions is who's going to play the Grinch? It's an extremely complicated part. First of all, it's a very tough sing because he's got to sing some big numbers with a big vocal range. You have to have a comic because it's basically a comic part. You have to have somebody who can really move because if you've ever seen the production, he's climbing all over the set, he's jumping, he climbs up the proscenium arch, he's got children running all over him. It's a part for a virtuoso, it's a part for a star.
I think the training in football, those summer camps, was worth it. At the age of 40 years old, I don't know if I didn't do that type of training, if I would be physically ready to do what I do out here every night. You have the green leotards on, you got the who belly, the who stomach, you got these claws on, you're climbing up, you're jumping off. It is very taxing, but the payoff, once again, is the effect that this show has on this city and the world abroad.
So many San Diegans were introduced to live theater for the first time by coming to see the Grinch at the holiday season. And as San Diego has changed demographically, as the composition of the city has changed, so has the composition of our audience. So when we try and put the production together, we really try and reflect the city that we're in. Now, of course, the main guy in the show is green. So color becomes this extraordinarily kind of slippery concept. It's this wonderful fantasy about a town coming together around the spirit of Christmas. And so it's a wonderful opportunity to reflect back to San Diego all the richness and complexity and diversity of the city itself, and that's how we go about putting the show together.
You know, it's a deep story about identity and being accepted. And that's where my blackness comes in at, you know, and I use that as I'm in Whoville, understanding that there's something that's happening to this lost individual through the eyes of a child.
When I walked into the audition room, there were more people of color than there were white people. And that was, I think, only the second time I experienced that in going to an audition. When I got cast and I walked into the first day of rehearsal, it was a pretty diverse mix in the room again, and that just felt so comforting in a way I was not used to. By the time we were done introducing ourselves, I realized that my identity as a queer black man was really only my concern and was already just being accepted by everyone else and wasn't being questioned. In fact, there were great moments with costuming and makeup where, you know, they wanted to make sure they were really getting things right for having, everything matched my hair and my skin tone the right way and all the right shades were right and making sure I was comfortable with everything. And there was such an awareness and inclusion that I never felt that happy in a production.
As an Asian actress, seeing young Asian children in the audience, I think it's really exciting for me to know that they're seeing representation. I think about a lot of the shows or the things that I watched growing up, even in theater, and there wasn't as much Asian representation, I felt like, or I didn't see myself represented on stage, and therefore it made me feel like I wasn't as good or I wasn't good enough. And it's really cool to know that people can look up on stage and see someone who looks like them and know that it's possible for them to be in the same spot.
While it seems that many theaters struggle with diversity and inclusion, particularly with lead roles on stage, the Old Globe has taken these challenges in stride, each year creating an even more diverse cast than years before. However, their commitment to this cause was steeped with more challenges in 2020.
2020's been an immensely challenging year for the Old Globe and for the live performing arts everywhere around the world, because there's this terrible virus, and what the virus wants more than anything else is for a lot of people to get together in close proximity to each other. That's how the virus thrives. So we have to stop the virus, and the way to do that is to stop allowing people to gather in close proximity. And that means no theater. It has put a huge number of people out of work. And I think many people, when they think of the theater, think about actors. Actors may be musicians, the people that are obviously there, and think, wow, it's awful that these wonderful artists are out of work, and it is. But they're just the tip of the iceberg. There are actors on that stage, there are musicians in the pit, but then there's stage crew that are moving the scenery around, that are pressing the buttons that make the automated scenery move. There are wardrobe professionals who make sure that everybody is dressed in the right thing, who are maintaining and cleaning the costumes in between shows. The number of people who are affected by this in the world of the theater, artisans who manufacture the scenery, who make the props, the professionals in the administrative life of the theater, who are minding the spreadsheets, who are selling the tickets, who are counting up the receipts for that day, who are manning the concession stand, who are selling merchandise outside, who are printing the program that gets distributed when people come. It's this enormous field, and it has been shut down.
I will be honest in that there have been days that I wake up and I'm so sad about the fact that we can't be going to theaters right now. We can't have that theater community. We can't see our cast members or everyone in production and work on theater together, because I think a lot of the reasons why actors decide to go into acting is because of the collaborative process and because there's such strong community that you have, that you share with other people to create something that you literally can't do on your own. So I've had a lot of days during this pandemic where I feel really low and down just because I miss the community so much.
When everything started to shut down as we learned more and more about this pandemic, the one thing I held on to was believing that there was some way Whoville was still going to come back, because I knew it had to for San Diego. There was so much I had no certainty to, as we all have dealt with this year. But there was always something that said, Grinch will be back. Grinch will be back.
Then, in the 11th hour, they had an idea. In collaboration with the Old Globe Theater and KPBS, the cast and crew committed to putting on an audio performance of this iconic play, avoiding an interruption of the 22-year run of entertaining families during the holiday season.
We decided early on that we weren't going to go into hibernation, that we had an obligation to our community to continue to make theater that matters. So a series of pivots began to see what we could do online. What could we do via Zoom? What could we do with video? What could we do with podcasting? What could we do with other digital platforms? And then a second impulse happened, which was the impulse of collaboration. because even for a big and mighty theater like the Globe, which before COVID was the third largest in the United States of America outside of New York, we couldn't make a go of this alone. We needed some help. And so we started thinking about ways to reach out to other organizations in the community, universities, community-based organizations, and now KPBS, which is the local NPR affiliate and an amazingly wonderful organization with a great community spirit, as the Globe has. So I called them up and I said to the people in charge at KPBS, would you be interested in a series of radio drama? And the first thing that we'd like to do is The Grinch, and they immediately said yes. Radio theater goes back to the beginning of the medium, 100 years ago in the 1920s, people with this crazy wireless technology started doing plays, doing dramas. So that part wasn't so hard to imagine how you could turn this musical into an audio work.
We recorded at home. My dad built me this box and he put blankets on the walls of the box so there wouldn't be echo. We met on Zoom when I was singing and rehearsing my lines and recording. I have this picture on my wall and it's all the sixth graders, and I just looked at that and I had my own audience.
I had a mic, thankfully, from doing voiceover on the road and stuff. So I had a mic, I had a laptop, and they kind of just stepped me through it. Like, this is what you need to do. This is, you'll need to pad all your walls with blankets and pillows. And because of that, now I have a kind of a little voiceover setup in my bedroom, which is kind of nice.
So we had this very high quality digital capture of the orchestra playing the score of the show. And then each actor was wherever they happened to live. New York, San Diego, Los Angeles, various places around the country, and they had the orchestra track. The director, James Vasquez, was here in San Diego on Zoom, so the actors could interact with each other via Zoom so they could see each other as they were performing. And then they were capturing recordings of themselves digitally that they then uploaded to San Diego, where in an audio studio, the thing has been put together.
Everyone is going to be able to listen from the comfort of their home. You can't bring food into a theater, but you can literally sit around with your family and make hot cocoa and make some food, and listen to us and use your imaginations and see Whoville for yourself.
I think there's even more magic in this radio version that we've put together this year in these unprecedented times. And it's been so special and transforming to know that we can keep on keeping on, as I like to say in this year. Our first day together was all in a Zoom, as is things for 2020. And I didn't know how to describe how I felt when there were even more people who looked like me in the Zoom room and in our Whoville cast than there had ever been before. It was wild. It was just a wild feeling. And then everything starts racing through my head of how many shows have I been in where it's actually been a diverse cast and I'm not the only Black man in the room. And it's been so few experiences. But this was, I couldn't find the words to describe it, but as soon as we got off of our, I think it was just maybe like 45 minutes of a call together, I just sat and cried for like 10 minutes because I never felt so normalized in such an incredible way that, it wasn't about having to focus on, we're celebrating diversity. It was like, no, we just are diverse. And it was there, it was in the room, and it's in this production, and it builds everything. It builds the community, it builds my hope and my inspiration that San Diego can do this, the world can do this, theater can do this.
And I know that we're not in a room together and we can't feed off of each other's energy like we would normally, but we all got to come together to create something.
It's exciting, and I think it's stuff that we'll probably do once we're back to normal when the pandemic is over, because it really resonates with people. Radio's intimate and magical, and it brings the material up so close and makes it a real one-on-one experience. And I'm really thrilled to see how audiences are going to respond, I think, very positively. And I'm so glad that we figured out a way to bring it to San Diego. The prospect of not doing it was just heartbreaking. And there was no way that the Old Globe was going to allow this thing to just go dark, go fallow. We've just had to find a way to bring it to San Diego. And I'm so delighted that we've been able to do it.
And so the Grinch goes on, adapting and changing, still bringing joy to all San Diegans. With a future so unknown, one thing is certain: theater has a gift hiding right behind the curtain. What happened then? Well, in San Diego, they say, the Grinch's small heart grew 3 sizes that day.
Support for this program comes from the KPBS Explore Local Content Fund, supporting new ideas and programs for San Diego.